7 new names on your trade targets board, Frank. Let's start with the highest debutant, if you will, in Evander Kane, who comes in at 6. He has a teammate in Victor Arvidsson down at 19 as well. But Evander Kane being as high as he is, I guess I'll ask you a little bit of a two-parter. Better than 50% chance he's moved out of Edmonton by the end of this summer. And is there a market for him, or is this just going to be a pure cap dump, or could the Oilers have to attach?
I think the Mason Marchment deal probably helps set the table in terms of what the Oilers could reasonably expect to get in return. No one's going to be doing the Oilers any favors. And the difference between Kane and Marchment is that, well, Marchment doesn't come with any baggage. So Kane obviously does. I don't know if it's fair to say that he's worn out his welcome. I think it's probably knocking on the door of that category. I do think that as the Oilers look for cap flexibility, Arvidsson is one, but if you really want to fix your goaltending and you want to bring in someone to play with Stuart Skinner and you want to pay that guy $6 million, where are you going to get that money from? It's got to come from somewhere. And I don't know that the Oilers can afford to squeeze at other points in their lineup. They survived, obviously, an entire regular season without Kane, and he was good for stretches of the playoffs, but not as consistent, and also played a really selfish brand of hockey when it came to the Stanley Cup final itself. So I do think better than a 50% chance, which is why he's so high up on the board at 6, but it may not come together quickly, and it may even get to a place for the Oilers where it's painful.
$5.125 million left on that deal, a UFA at the end of next season. If there was a case to be made for a team taking a chance on him, if there's ever a time where Evander Kane should be on his best behavior, it's going into a contract year, especially considering what we last saw from him, like you said, in the Cup final. So I don't know. I do think there's a chance whatever team acquires him gets the best out of him.
Yeah, well, he's going to be highly motivated, that's for sure. But deep down, I'm wondering if Evander Kane is sitting here watching this going, man, I would love a buyout. Get double dip for next season and become a free agent now.
Yeah,
I don't think the buyout makes a ton of sense. It's 2.3 and 1. So it's still like enough cap savings where you also don't have to pull your hair out, but not as clean, obviously, as doing it the trade route.
Another set of teammates debuting on your board. You have J.G. Pageau at 8 and Noah Dobson down at 25. Frank, the Pageau thing, just a matter of the Islanders, again, almost similar to the Oilers, I guess. They're trying to get some cap flexibility here, right? And Pageau's a guy heading into the final year of a deal with a $5 million AAV.
Not entirely. I think they'd be comfortable having Pageau come back and play. But if you're thinking about how thin the center market is, and it's getting thinner by the moment, Brock Nelson, Jonathan Taves, Matt Duchene, go down the list, Yanni Gord, like they're all getting crossed off. So if you're trying to find a center as a free agent and you can't get one, well, hey, the Islanders are sitting here with a guy who only has 1 year left on his deal. And a year ago at this time, he was trade fodder for a different reason as like a cap dump. He went out and had a great year. A statistically depressed New York Islanders roster, Pageau improves from the year prior. And at 40-some points, a $5 million cap hit isn't really out of whack, let alone for a player who also plays a pretty complete game and competes, that they've got some real positive trade equity here, and they can take that equity and sprinkle it further around their roster to fill other holes.
What about Dobson at 25? Obviously a pending RFA. You said on the DFO rundown his ask could be somewhere around $11 million. Is this just a matter of maybe the Islanders going like, ooh, that's a high price tag, let's explore the market? Like, he is low on your list. Granted, he's there.
He is low on the list, and that's to indicate that I wouldn't necessarily classify it as likely. But that said, an important reminder and distinction for people, because they wanted to seize on this on social media yesterday after listening to the DFO rundown, and that was, it's an initial ask. We don't think that it's going to end up at 11 million. No one does. But I'll tell you what, it's definitely put the Islanders in a position where they go, no matter what, this is going to be expensive. And it's not to say that they aren't interested in the player for the long haul or anything like that. At 25, with some up and down productivity seasons, plus a new number one overall pick coming in likely Matthew Schaefer, you're going to have to make decisions on how you navigate your cap. If you give Dobson 8 years or whatever it is, what are you going to be paying Schaefer if he goes along in his productivity, if it's linear and he is the player you think he could be? And then how does that all fit together with the rest of what you're doing? So when you've got a guy who has a 70-point season under his belt as a right shot defenseman, they've got options. They don't have to knuckle down and pay him if they don't want to. And this is Matthew Darche, their new first-time GM, arriving at a very critical position in a real short period of time. Again, not saying it's likely, but I'm saying if this is going to be a painful negotiation and or the Islanders believe deep down in their gut that they're not willing to pay, this is the time to move on.
Kane, Arvidsson, Dobson, Pajot. You made sure no one was feeling too lonely on your trade targets board, and you even gave Erik Karlsson a friend. Right after Karlsson is Brian Rust. And on one hand, I go, man, 3 more years, $5.125 million for a guy whose floor is 20 goals and his ceiling is 30 plus. That should be a pretty easy deal to move. On the other hand, he is 33 years old. Are his best days behind him? How strong do you think the market could be for Brian Rust in Pittsburgh?
I think it's really solid. He went out and totally knocked it out of the park last season with his year. You mentioned 30 plus goals, 60 plus points, and at that cap hit is very reasonable. So if you were to get that guy on the open market today after a season like that, it's probably 7 or something like that, with the cap continuing to increase. Are you okay with the 3 years remaining? I think for the Pittsburgh Penguins, with a team knowing that they need to continue to tear this down, you get out while the getting's good on Rust. His value may never be higher than it is at this exact moment in time, coming off of a season like that. And you don't want to be in a spot later on where you keep him, you hang on to him for another year or two, and then you go, oh my God, this is painful. Why didn't we do something earlier? As I wrote in the trade targets piece, get out while the getting's good.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Again, when you look at this Pittsburgh team, like, a lot of those contracts have obviously gotten to that point. With Karlsson, it's like, okay, you might have to retain just to get him. With Rust, it's a legitimate chance to get assets back. And I think Kyle Dubas absolutely needs to pounce on that.
Agreed. And wanted to touch quickly before we move on Matthias Samuelson. If Pat, you want to throw that board up there again. It's a really interesting case what happens next with Samuelson in Buffalo. They made a major bet, $30 million on a 7-year deal for him to be a top 4 defenseman for the long haul. He was a trendy buyout candidate because he's under 26 and they could save 2/3 of that money, $14 million plus in real cash savings with a really cheap cap hit. It would be $700,000, ish under league minimum for the next 10 seasons. So I'm not predicting that a buyout is coming. I'm just saying that if you are unsure, again, as you arrive at this juncture, and for a Sabres team that you thought would be your bona fide defender and your team cannot still defend, maybe this is something that you look at, if not on the buyout front, then on the trade front.
Yeah. Again, a 25-year-old, like, I think about some guys who have, it's not direct comparables. Obviously, we just laughed about Gustav Forsling being a guy that's on waivers, but I think about a Mike Matheson, right, who was in a spot, signed the big ticket with Florida, then it went bad, and then he got a fresh start, and all of a sudden, hey, looks like a really good defenseman again. He's obviously now in Montreal, but he had the stop in Pittsburgh. Like, I don't know. I look at a guy who's 6'4" and can kill penalties well, 25 years old. Like, I'd be willing to take a bet on him if I was another team. Let's get to our daily Faceoff inbox question, actually. We'll stay in the Eastern Conference for this one, Frank. Joshua Miller is one of our resident Carolina Hurricanes fans in the YouTube chat. He put in #AskDFO. What are the Canes going to do? It feels like nothing. Then he put in a little sad face there, and I feel for him, Frank. Can you give Joshua Miller anything to smile about on the Carolina front? Do you think they're still planning to be aggressive this summer?
Without a doubt. That's all they know. You're off to a good start today, bud. You got some real value in Eric Robinson at 4 times $1.7 million signed today. So something to feel good about heading into the weekend. And just wanted to dispel one thing, because this seemed to pop up on social media, but I can tell you that there's zero indication that I've heard that Svechnikov is someone that is available. So obviously not on my trade targets board. He would be if he was, and I don't think there's any truth to that rumbling.
Yeah, we did get that question asked as well in there, so appreciate you clarifying that.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.